Hello Horror Hounds, if you're ever around a campfire or in a small local English pub on the moors and someone begins to tell you the tale of a person who knew a person who knew a person who'd watched all three urban legend movies back to back so they could review them for their small YouTube channel, well, that's me! Often dismissed as a Scream clone, and let's be honest, Urban Legend takes the Scream template and runs it right into the ground. There's still quite a lot of fun to be had with this movie. Honestly, the opening of this movie saves a lot of its later sins. It kicks the thing off in such a high gear, so turbocharged. It's as strong an opening, I think, as any of the Scream movies and any sort of slasher movie. The whole lone female driver at the petrol station with an amazing cameo, a twitchy cameo by Brad Dourif. If only he hadn't have had that stutter, everything would have been fine. But the setup, the fake outs to the reveal, there's someone in the back seat of your car whilst Bright Eyes Turn Around is playing in ironic fashion, and the figure and the axe head come up from the back seat. Absolutely superb. What a way to kick off a movie, and you're really flying out of the gates. Urban Legend is, yes, a very self-conscious attempt to recreate the success of Scream, and it is slick and it is glossy, but it moves at such a clip that if you can sit back after being grabbed by the throat from that opening kill, it pretty much rushes you through the whole rest of the movie. You will have to endure about 3 in a row really obnoxious jump scare musical stings where a character walks in, screen left or screen right, and the music goes doo, and the person jumps and you think, oh come on, please, can we not just get beyond this? But then the film settles down into its own rhythm, and there are 2 or 3 really standout kills. The first, obviously, one that I had stuck in my mind from when I'd originally seen the film when it came out, was the parking couple, Urban Legend, the one where Joshua Jackson gets hung up by the car, and one that I'd forgotten, which is a really visceral kill, which is the dean of the university being run over by his own car but pushed back onto those tyre spikes. Really nice, effective little kills. It must be said though that after a while the logistics of it all do start creeping into the viewer's brain. Jared Leto's character says it best in the movie, I think, when he says something along the lines of, a serial killer using urban legends as inspiration? That's a stretch, and it does stretch credulity, especially when you start realizing that realistically the killer would have to employ enormous coincidence, clairvoyance and teleportation to pull all of this off. And towards the end, the planning of it does all start to unravel. Well, what if they hadn't have parked there by that tree? What if these people hadn't flashed their headlights? What if, I mean, how willing were you to stick to your central urban legend conceit in what ultimately turns out to be a revenge movie? As with most campus killer movies, you'll be presented with one of the emptiest university campuses you can possibly imagine. Completely empty libraries, empty swimming pools, and a campus that appears to employ only one campus police officer. On the plus side, you do get to see Danielle Harris as a goth chick. So, all in all, if you want to leave your brain at the door, it's fun. It does what it says on the cover. It's adequate. It does not reach the heights of Scream, but when you want a little bit of a late 90s campus killer themed stalker slasher movie that's not Scream, you could do a lot worse than this. It's enjoyable enough that straight after it we put on Urban Legends 2. And whilst it's fair to say right at the top that this isn't a great film, it really doesn't take itself seriously, and I was very surprised by how much fun I was having with it. Maybe it was coming off the back of the first film, which does kind of take itself seriously. I mean, this film is ludicrous, but kind of endearingly ludicrous. We start with a film within a film fake out, which I think is a complete misstep right from the start, that references the Twilight Zone's terror at 20,000 feet and somehow tries to pass that off as something that really happened. Why not use Twilight Zone episodes that are actually based on urban legends? There are a ton of them. The Disappearing Hitchhiker springs to mind straight away. But why is anyone going to start watching a film called Urban Legends and think that the gremlin on the airplane wing is a true story? Eventually, though, this film gets to the point and the first kill, which honestly I think it should have opened with, and then we could have established the setting of the film school. The waking up in an ice tub with your kidney removed kill scene. It's the best kill in the entire movie. It's brutal, it's much more direct, it's very visceral, it will make you flinch, and it seems to promise, in the same way that Scream 2 is a lot more direct and brutal in the kills than the first film was, more down to business. It seems to promise that this film's going to be the same, but it doesn't. It veers off into parody and whimsy. I wish they could have just decided on a tone. So yes, it's still a university campus setting, but this university is a film school. So this film is going for maximum scream, peak scream, in a weird sort of mashup of the campus vibe of Scream 2 and the film industry vibe of Scream 3. However, I must say that the students in Scream 2 always sounded more realistic with their dialogue. They were always talking about films I think those kids would have seen in a way that they would have seen them. Here we get characters talking about the mise en scène of cinema verite, and the works of Truffaut, Orson Welles and Hitchcock are referenced. And there are nods in this film to Inferno, Peeping Tom, Vertigo, and probably a ton of others that were too ham-fisted for me to recognise. I've said it in previous videos, I'll say it again here. Never reference a much better film in your film. Or alternatively, why not just absolutely go for it? The first film pretty much already used up all the best urban legends. The things that the sequels will suffer from is sort of bottom of the barrel syndrome, or even repetition of some of the best known legends. And this film kind of semi-ditches the urban legends themed kills anyway, relatively early on. So why not just, if you're going to set it in a film school and be referential to other films, why not just really go for it and have every kill scene parody a famous kill scene from a classic horror movie and then twist it up? There's even the door open for parodying other genres of film, not just horror movies, with the return of the character Reese, the campus police officer played by Loretta Devine, who is obsessed with Pam Grier movies. She could have slipped into a little scene parodying Foxy Brown or Coffee. As an aside, I like to think of her character as the sister of LL Cool J's security guard character in Halloween H20. But that's just maybe something I made up to help me enjoy the movie more. I think if there'd been more movie parodies, the really by this point ultra Scooby-Doo unmasking of the killer ending would have felt a little more of a piece with the rest of the movie. As it is, can I just ask, who wears a fencing mask to do their killings? What with that and the anorak hood in the first film, I'm upset with the takeaway from these movies that peripheral vision is unimportant when executing complex themed serial killings. But in the final analysis, I laughed, I rolled with it, it's stupid, but it's light, breezy, and it's basically inoffensive fun. Which finally brings us to the direct-to-video Urban Legends Bloody Mary, which I have got the feeling it just feels all over it like a completely separate movie, but then was retrofitted into the Urban Legends franchise. It feels like an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark? made into a mashup of Ringu and Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. If that sounds really awesome, which it does, this movie will disappoint you even more. If the last two movies, like, to be fair, the Scream movies were horror movie Scooby-Doo's, this one is more of a Nancy Drew movie. Although it doesn't really take a real life Nancy Drew to figure out who done it, because by the time the third act rolls around, the film's only really offered up two possible suspects, so you might as well toss a coin for it and leave the little grey cells to rest themselves. This one goes an interesting and probably necessary route after we've had a couple of very human serial killers really tying themselves into knots trying to get these movies to look like urban legend killings. This one goes supernatural, and I wish the film had had the courage of its own convictions and just told us the Bloody Mary story rather than having to try and shoehorn in more urban legend themed deaths. Although as I say that out loud, I realise that probably would have meant that the movie did without the spider lays eggs in your face death, which is probably the really low quality CGI aside, it is the standout death in this movie, and I wouldn't be without it. This film continues the urban legend franchise's obsessions with date rape, drugs, dog killing, and the films of Pam Grier. Also, as a personal aside, one of the bad jocks in this movie looks so much like Chris Griffin from Family Guy. I mean, the hair, the earring, the bum chin, that I kept repeating his lines in Chris's voice just to pass the time. It's, once you notice it, incredibly distracting. In the end, ultimately, there's not enough Bloody Mary in Urban Legends Bloody Mary. It feels like a wasted potential. The Bloody Mary character is clearly designed and shot to ride the coattails of what was then the next big wave, the J-horror wave with Ringu and Ju-on the Grudge. They should have just really gone for it. Tell the tale of Bloody Mary. Imagine a Bloody Mary movie in the vein of Dead Silence. Something that just fucking goes for the supernatural. Oh well. But ultimately insisting on having these high niche themed killings, you're running out of material at such an enormous rate that honestly the first one's already used up the lion's share of what you can possibly do with this kind of high concept. My final thoughts are that the Scream films are more cohesive. They have a wider remit. They're talking about all slasher films, which gave those films much more room to maneuver than the very niche urban legend setting. The Final Destination films have crazier kills because, again, their remit is death. So they've got these huge Rube Goldberg fatalities that give them much more latitude than having to try and force deaths and fatalities around urban legends. Like the Wishmaster series that I reviewed a little while ago, the original hook proves ultimately too restrictive for the sequels, and by the third film a couple of the urban legends are just referenced. The character just mentions some urban legends in dialogue, or some of them are repeated from earlier installments. It's been a while since I've seen the I Know What You Had Last Dinner films, although off the back of these I have ordered them to watch through. But I'm confident in still declaring Cherry Falls, which I also reviewed a while ago, as the best of the post-Scream teen slashers. The I Know What You'll Still Be Doing next time I do a franchise review movies are winging their way through the post to me, but before I get round to those, I've just got an itch for something a little more old school. So the next franchise review we do, we're going to take them a film at a time. And, well, I don't want to hammer home the point, but I'm really looking forward to it.